I want to start this week by showing you some of the incredibly moving images out of the funeral for the Bibas family. It really was an entire nation in mourning. The entire world should have stood still for those innocent victims of terror. United in grief, yes, but an almost unbearable rage too that this was able to occur on our watch. But instead, as per usual, when it comes to Israel and our Jewish brothers and sisters, aside from a few notable exceptions, it was left mostly to them. To weep the loss of a baby, a toddler, and a mum. And weep they did. Husband and father, Yarden, with a eulogy for the ages.
זה היה ממש בתחילת הקשר שלנו. אמרת לי לקרוא לך ככה רק אם אני יודע בוודאות שאני אוהב אותך ולא להגיד סתם. אז לא אמרתי את זה כי לא רציתי שתחשבי שאני ממהר להגיד אני אוהב אותך. אז שירי אני אגלה לך. אהבתי אותך כבר אז שאמרתי לך מי אמור. שירי אני אוהב אותך ותמיד אוהב אותך. שירי את הכל בשבילי. את האישה והאימא הכי טובה שיש. שירי את החברה הכי טובה שלי. מישמיש, זה הכינוי שלך. מי יעזור לי לקבל החלטות עכשיו? איך אני אמור לקבל החלטות בלעדייך? את זוכרת את ההחלטה האחרונה שלנו בממ"ד? שאלתי אותך נלחמים או נכנעים? אמרת לי נלחמים, אז נלחמתי.
His strength, Herculean. How proud his beautiful wife and babies would have been. It felt like there was something more than grief underpinning the emotion and the tears. A quiet resolve, almost, of a people who refuse again and again to let their enemies win, and have done so from the beginning of time, through sheer necessity, I know, who have faced hell and still risen above to reject vehemently all the trappings of it, who refuse to be poisoned by the hate they face. In fact, they repel it by loving each other more, who in their collective state of trauma form an unbroken bond that will tie them to each other, not just now, not just momentarily, but for eternity. Yarden's heartbreak feels like all of theirs, though I know, and they do too, it will never match. This outpouring of grief, love and tears, by the way, is not weak. It is a brick wall. And try as they might, their enemies cannot knock it down. In fact, the harder they try, the stronger it gets. Those who killed the Bibas family and all others on October 7 and since that day will be brought to justice. Never forgive, never forget. Not only because the victims and perpetrators deserve nothing less, but because Israel knows it has no alternative. It can never accept what occurred, nor rely on anyone else to step up. Haven't we been shown that time and time again? Their survival as a nation and as a people depends on it. Now let's get into Bat Beat Crazy and everyone's favourite climate champion. Well, she's back and seems to have completely moved on from the world will end 5 years ago to genocide. Now, if track records are anything to go by, Greta Thunberg has been right on the sum total of no occasions at all. So look, points for consistency. At least we know what to expect when she opens her mouth. Her latest foray into advocacy continuing with, of course, the pro-Palestinian movement. Now I get it. Most people with even a quarter of a clue understand that Hamas are the greatest enemy of the Palestinians. And if you genuinely care about them, then you should fight to free those in Gaza from the terrorists, not parrot their propaganda and protest their victims.
How dare you!
I'm just stating the obvious, Greta. But look, fair point. Instead of me trying to explain to my audience what exactly you and your friends are doing in Copenhagen dressed like Ghostbusters wearing terror scarves, I'll let you do it.
We're currently outside Maersk, one of the biggest shipping companies in the world, that only the last year, has shipped thousands of tons of military equipment to Israel to arm them during their genocide in Gaza. And we are here to demand that Maersk must stop all the transportation of weapons and weapon components to Israel. They must terminate all contracts and investment that support the genocide and occupation of Palestine. And Denmark must implement a full military embargo on Israel. We are here because we know that America are not going to do it for us. We have overwhelming evidence showing that Israel is committing a genocide in Palestine. People have been trying to resist for so long, but they are still not listening. So therefore we take it on ourselves because we know that these big companies are ruled by profit. That's why we are using our democratic duty as citizens to stand up for what is right, to stand up for justice, for a free Palestine. That's what we are occupying in Maersk right now.
Companies ruled by profit. Who would have thought it? I mean, I much prefer terrorists ruled by death, right, Greta? You're standing up for what is right, for justice? May I ask where the justice is for the Bibas babies, where your fight for them is? You cared deeply, you said, about all children all over the world when you were trying to tell them they were going to die from global warming. You accused the world of stealing your dreams in childhood. What about the Bibas babies' dreams in childhood? Does that not, matter either? You're still here. They aren't. And you wear that scarf and you attack their people and you scream for justice? You've said before, and I quote, "Hope is telling the truth." Well, what do you call this? You are a fraud and a dangerous one. Being young is no longer an excuse. You are in good company, though. In fact, former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn might even just pip you this week for chief idiot. He's had 75 years to try and figure out the basics. What's his excuse? It's almost so ridiculous that it belongs in a show like Blackadder or Monty Python. And for those who don't get that reference, Google it. It's great British humour. Take it away, Jeremy.
Ends all arms sales to Israel. People ask why we're still marching. Well, there might be a tentative ceasefire in Gaza, but the Israeli Defense Force are now bombing the West Bank, sending tanks into refugee camps, making people homeless, arresting people, putting them in prison, preparing for the full occupation of the West Bank and driving the Palestinian people into despair. Well, they're not going to be driven into despair. We will support them.
I mean, again, why are we still marching? We know why, Jeremy, because it's actually got nothing to do with Gaza or justice or standing up for humanity. If it did, you'd be out there right now pounding the pavement for these 70 Christians beheaded in a church in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But you're not, so pipe down. And honestly, again, that video is utterly ridiculous. It makes no sense. And you appear even more foolish than previously thought. And that was a near impossible feat. Columbia got a little break this week as the world's worst educational institute when it comes to a complete capitulation of standards. The London School of Economics hosting an event called Understanding Hamas and Why That Matters. The accompanying article out of the school's Middle East Centre says, and I quote, "The Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, have been subjected to intense vilification, branding it as a terrorist or worse. This demonisation intensified after the events in southern Israel on October 7. This is actually real. I kid you not. Resistance movement? Who were they resisting against? the kids they shot in their beds? Subjected to intense vilification? Well, no shit, Sherlock. They're terrorists who killed. Branded as a terrorist? Yes, again, they are. Demonization intensified after October 7. Gee, I cannot imagine. They murdered over 1,200 people and took hundreds of hostages. Look, you got the title right, I guess. It is important to understand Hamas and why that matters. So let me help you out and the people who might have been considering going, just save them some time. Hamas are terrorists. This matters because if you encounter them, they'll likely kill you. End of session. Class dismissed. To the US, and Donald Trump has held his first cabinet meeting, and probably just to annoy the Democrats. And yes, maybe also because he's the richest man in the world and knows a thing or two about the economy and runs Doge, Elon Musk was a special guest.
So, Elon, if you could get up and explain where you are, how you're doing, and...
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually just call myself a humble tech support here because this is actually, as crazy as it sounds, that is almost a literal description of the work that the Doge team is doing. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt. It's not an optional thing, it is an essential thing. And obviously that can only be done with the support of everyone in this room. And I'd like to thank everyone for your support. Thank you very much. This can only be done with your support. But we can do it, and we will do it. Thank you.
Outrage and reaction from the regular types. Well, it was swift, but still nowhere near as good as this.
We have got to tell Elon Musk, nobody elected your ass. We are here to fight back. Hands off our democracy! Hands off!
A little reminder for the "we didn't elect Elon" brigade. No one elected Jill Biden either. And if you had to pick between the two as to who might be best qualified to make the better contribution to American society, yeah, it's not a tough choice. Still on Musk, and his request to the Federal Workers of America was, well, brilliant.
I think that email perhaps was misinterpreted as a performance review, but actually it was a pulse check review. Do you have a pulse? Do you have a pulse and two neurons? So if you have a pulse and two neurons, you can reply to an email.
Wait a minute, wait. I'd like to add that those million people that haven't responded, though, Elon, they are on the bubble. You know, I wouldn't say that we're thrilled about it. You know, they haven't responded. Now, maybe they don't exist. Maybe they're not around. Maybe they have other jobs. Maybe they moved and they're not where they're supposed to be.
You'd have thought he'd demanded they all individually come up with a solution for world peace, rather than produce 5 points on what they did last week. I mean, I ask my 6-year-old daily what she did at school, and I know for certain she just makes up whatever is quick and easy so she can move on with her life. It ain't that hard. And I'm not paying her, by the way. She still indulges me. So if you're going to take a pretty penny from the taxpayer, and the man the elected president appointed to clean you all up wants you to do something my 6-year-old can do in about 7 seconds, and you can't, you got bigger problems than just Doge, let me tell you. Oh, and I think world peace is next week's task. Good luck. The National Journal has compared the number of media questions taken by Donald Trump over the past month to those taken by President Biden over the same period. Now let's play a little game. I'm going to tell you both figures and let you guess which figure belongs to which president. The first, 141. The second, 1009. Now, before I give it away, I want to remind you of each president's level of, say, comfortability when it comes to facing the press.
Americans voted for you on the immigration and the economy, but these voters say they're angry and frustrated by these firings, they don't like the work of Elon Musk and these other actions. What do you say to them?
Who do you work for?
I work for ABC News, sir.
Who?
ABC News.
No wonder.
And the reason I'm not going to take a lot of questions, there's remaining issues that are open, and we've got to determine what's going to happen in terms of the rescue mission and the like.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the edge of your seats, I'm sure, don't have the budget for a drum roll. Yes, Trump wins with over 1,000. Jane Fonda dominated headlines this week because apparently she and her actor/Democratic darlings have a monopoly on empathy.
Workers' power is being attacked and community is being weakened than most other unions. Because us, the workers, we actors, we don't manufacture anything tangible. What we create is empathy. Our job is to understand another human being so profoundly that we can touch their souls. We know why they do what they do. We feel their joy. And I'm sure many of you guys have played bullies. Probably their father bullied them and called men that he felt were weak. He called them losers or pussies. And by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people. A whole lot of people are going to be really hurt by what is happening, what is coming our way.
Where do I start? Actors create empathy, do they? Actually, dear Jane, you actors create movies, and even then, most of them aren't much chop. Imagine thinking you and your friends, no matter how talented at pretending to be other people you and they might be, which I give you credit for, you are responsible for creating the feeling of empathy. I would kill for that kind of confidence. She goes on to say, empathy is not weak or woke, and by the way, woke just means you care about other people. Nobody thinks empathy is weak. Empathy has been the driving factor behind some of the strongest and most powerful movements in history. The people who led them just understood how to deliver on that feeling of empathy, to improve the situation for those you feel empathy toward, rather than contribute to making their existence a hell of a lot harder. Woke does not mean you care about people, Jane. It means you pretend to, for accolades. Do you reckon the people in LA feel cared for or cared about? Or the families who lost loved ones because of open borders? Or the girls who have had to share their bathrooms with grown men? I don't reckon any of them feel particularly cared for. So, again, and no one will ever say it better in the history of the world, and you clearly didn't watch or take note the last time I played it, so I repeat via the dulcet tones of Ricky Gervais.
If you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and... So... It's already 3 hours long.
But side note, you did look absolutely mind-blowingly good, which you'll probably hate too because you guys don't like a focus on the aesthetic, even though you do always focus on the aesthetic. We're just not allowed to comment on the aesthetic that you focus on. But anyway, you looked incredible.
I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things, but I can definitely understand why some people don't believe me.
I got into Harvard only because of affirmative action, because unfortunately we do have a fascist groundswell among black and brown men.
The elements of fascism are rooted in this nationalistic drive for more babies.
Still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet.
There are many ways to cheat in an election.
Now, it's always hard when someone loses their job, particularly when they're on television. Believe you me, I know. It did only happen to me once, by the way, and that was a couple of months ago after 20 years in media, so I don't think I was doing that badly. But back to Joy Reid. Look, let me give you a little insight, and it's probably going to be unsurprising. Us TV types, we are all deeply insecure, and the thought of being irrelevant is, well, a fate worse than death. But at least I can say that I didn't cry about it. Well, on camera anyway. Now, she deserves a tribute. She's been on air for a long time. It can be hard in the public eye. And she has made a contribution to American life and society. And I'd like Terrence K. Williams to do that for me. Before he does, please enjoy a bit of joy not expressing, to be honest, that much joy.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And then it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you, where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a mom or a dad that was killed, or when we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted and not just black folks, or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did and try to make a life and defended them, or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that Nicole Hannah-Jones put into our spirit, that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And where I come down on that is I'm not sorry. I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things are of God. And I'm a church girl too, and those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show.
Well, you can't be proud of your show. You ain't got no show no more. Joy, it is a joyful time that you will not be on TV anymore. You are one hateful person. All you did was raise bait. All you did was tell lies. You were nothing but fake news. And and Black History Month is almost over, so this is a great way to end it, getting rid of you. Oh, my goodness. These pancakes taste so better when you crying. Let's go. Get rid of The View next. Joe Behar and Whoopi and all them. Get rid of them next.
Get rid of Whoopi and them next. Yeah, normally I would be completely on board with that, but selfishly, Terence, if you got rid of them, I would really lose a lot of material for this segment. So please, baby steps.